Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So as you can see, today I am in costume. This is actually my first time wearing a more legit Halloween costume. I was really inspired by my recent obsession with Rose of Versailles and the character Lady Oscar to try to go all out for this year's Halloween. So for context, I'm someone who normally doesn't dress up that much. I maybe will find an outfit that kind of looks like a costume and then do some makeup, but I've never really done more than that. That said, my love for Lady Oscar inspired me this year to do a lot more. So I got this costume off eBay. This is like custom fit. It's actually pretty good quality considering the price. Like the fabric is reasonably thick, so I've been quite impressed. I also got a wig, so this is my first time ever wearing a wig. I have colored contacts, which is also a first for me. I've never put on colored contacts, and I'm going to be attempting in today's video to do anime style makeup. Not like super intense, but at least kind of like that eye shape and such. So this video will feature a lot of firsts for me. I've really never tried any of these things, but I thought it might be fun to film it and share it with all of you. In case you haven't heard of Rose of Versailles before, it is one of the OG shoujo manga. So it came out in the 1970s, and there's an anime associated with it as well. And actually next year they're coming out with a new movie. So there's a lot of different forms in which you can consume this, but basically it tells the story of Lady Oscar, who is a noble woman in France in the 1700s, and she is raised as a boy because her father, who is a general, has had 6 daughters, and he's determined to have an heir who can carry on his military legacy. So he gives Oscar a male name and raises her as his heir. And so she has this very unique upbringing, and she becomes the colonel of the royal guards protecting Marie Antoinette and the royal family. So this story basically follows Oscar along with Marie Antoinette and their love interests during this revolutionary time in France. So it's a really great mix of historical fiction, romance, female empowerment, really strong, interesting female characters, and overall just a really fun, really engaging story with really beautiful visuals as well. So I would highly recommend it. In today's video, I will be sharing the makeup and costuming side, but also talking a bit more about the story and why I like it so much. So if you don't want any spoilers, please check that out beforehand. But without further ado, let's get into today's look. Okay, so this is really wild. This is my first time ever wearing colored contacts, and as you can tell, these are really intense colored contacts. I've always wondered what I would look like with blue eyes, and these are really, really blue. In case you're curious, this is from a brand called Soletica. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is their shade Aurora Blue. And these are very expensive. This is like over $50 for just one pair. This does last, I think, a few months, but I don't really think I'm going to be wearing this much outside of this costume, but I did splurge for this because I didn't want to buy any contacts that could harm my eyes, because there are some where it's not super clear if they're good for your eyes, and I do wear prescription contacts, so I wanted to make sure the prescription worked well. And this is the one brand I found where they could produce blue contacts that really look blue on brown eyes. A lot of the other brands that do prescription contacts do more natural colored contacts where you're not really going to see bright blue against brown eyes, but as you can tell, this really shows up. This is truly, truly blue. A little bit creepy, but I think good for the look because Oscar is known for her super blue eyes, and I think this also matches the costume quite well. But in any case, really trippy though. Like if you've ever wondered how you would look with super blue eyes and you have brown eyes, I would recommend trying these out. It's not a natural look by any means, but it is definitely effective. Alrighty, so let's get into the makeup. So unfortunately, I don't feel confident enough to do the whole blocking out your brows and all of that. So this is not gonna be, I think, as exciting of an anime transformation as you could probably find at other channels. This is just gonna be slightly modified. Mostly I'm gonna try to do the eyes a little bit differently for today's look, but the rest of the way I do my face isn't gonna be that drastically different from what I normally do. So for foundation, I'm going in with my Tom Ford Traceless Soft Matte foundation. I haven't worn this in a while because it's been kind of light for me, but hopefully it works well for today's look because Oscar does have a relatively light skin tone. Okay, and yeah, I think I'm close enough to my winter shade now that actually this looks pretty good on me right now. I have this in shade Buff, which is 2.0. So I'm just going to put a few pumps of this all over my face. I'm going to be quite generous because, you know, I am trying to look like an anime character and they have basically flawless skin. So it's okay if things look a little bit like a mask today. Because, I mean, between this and the eyes and the wig, I'm definitely not going to look like my normal self. But this is definitely an interesting experience. I still can't get over the eyes. They just look so wild to me. Like, I've never seen my eyes look any other color than brown, so it's really weird. I feel like the blue also kind of brings out the redness around my eyes, which is not the most flattering, but that's okay. Hopefully, by the time I'm done with this look, we can conceal some of that. I'm also going to put on some of my eye primer from McGrath because we're going to do quite a bit to the eyes today, at least a lot of liner and shadow. Basically, I watched one video on anime eye makeup. It's like the first one that pops up when you search for it. So I'm going to try to do that. It didn't really feature any eyeshadow. It was basically all liner and, I mean, I guess black shadow, but, you know, no colorful shadow. So we'll see how that goes. That's very different from my typical eye looks that are very colorful and eyeshadow forward. And then I actually have pretty good coverage already, but I am going to go in with a little bit of my Dior Forever Skin Correct just to make sure my problem areas are fully covered up. And now for powder, I'm going in with my Huda Beauty powder. This one is pretty light, so I think this will help with the overall vibe that I'm going for with this look. Let me actually add a little bit more concealer to my blemishes over here. As a side note, if you watched my previous kind of character transformation video where I was inspired by Blue Eye Samurai and the character Mizu, I think there's kind of this common theme in some of the shows I've been loving recently of women who kind of play more like male roles in society. So Mizu was also raised as a boy and became a master swordsman and samurai. That's something we see in Rose of Versailles as well, with Oscar being like a master swordsman and, as I mentioned, having a very high military position as well. So I think I really like these sorts of stories of women kind of succeeding in a men's world and kind of like beating men at their own game. I don't know, it's something that really appeals to me. There's just this like sense of empowerment. And it's really cool to see these female characters embody sort of like the traditional superhero role that tends to be occupied by men. So as I mentioned for brows, I'm not going to do the whole blocking out my brows thing. I'm just going to go in with some brow pencil and some brow gel. But instead of trying to make my brows look super fluffy, I'm going to keep it a little bit more subdued than I normally would. Also kind of similar to Blue Eye Samurai, I was really attracted to how Rose of Versailles is this historical fiction piece that does capture a lot of real world history. So personally, I didn't know a lot about the French Revolution before watching this show. Like, of course, I knew the basic contours, but, you know, Marie Antoinette is very vilified by and large in media as a queen who didn't really care about her people and their suffering and poverty, and that really precipitating and igniting the French Revolution. But I thought it was so interesting in Rose of Versailles how Marie Antoinette is also one of the main characters, and Oscar is basically charged with protecting her. And so you kind of see Marie Antoinette more as a multifaceted person. So definitely not a good ruler, especially when she first ascended to the throne, but also not a bad person per se. So she's basically portrayed as someone who she ascended the throne at a very young age and was very frivolous and unhappy and, you know, spending a lot of money and not really taking governance that seriously. But at the same time, she was a nice person and a wonderful mother and someone who cared a lot about her friends. And over time did mature and become a bit better at the political side of things, but it was sort of like a too little too late situation. And I thought that was interesting because in general, I think we see this trend in fiction nowadays where you have fewer and fewer just like villains that are straight up villainous. There is a lot more emphasis on showing people as multifaceted characters. And I feel like this series, even though it was from the 70s, does a really great job of that. It really shows all of the different perspectives around the French Revolution. You have perspectives from folks who were impoverished and really suffering and became revolutionaries, folks who were in the nobility and really loyal to the royal family and kind of felt like the most honorable thing you could do was kind of preserve the status quo, and folks kind of in between as well. And it really shows all these different layers of society and how like you could have good people in each of these layers, even if like, you know, at the end of the day, the series is kind of pro-revolutionary in terms of like being very sympathetic to the plight of the poor, but it also takes a fairly mature stance in terms of showing some of the challenges with revolution as well, in terms of tearing down existing structures and public order, and how it still, you know, post the storming of the Bastille took a very long time before France got to be the republic that it is today. Like you had the whole Reign of Terror and Napoleonic period as well. So I thought this was all just super interesting because I'm not actually much of a history buff, but I guess I really like historical fiction. And it's so interesting to just learn about these very tumultuous periods of history and all of the different players, and also just to get a more nuanced view of historical figures like Marie Antoinette, who typically are very vilified. And by the way, what I'm doing now is I'm trying to add a little bit more definition to my eye area. I'm using this Estee Lauder double wear Kohl eyeliner. And what I want to do, and we'll see if I can do this, is I want to sort of draw this upwards a little bit and over to kind of create that anime eye shape, and then also kind of extend downward a little bit here. This is where I'm kind of out of my depth, to be completely honest, but yeah, I'm going to try between this and some black eyeshadow. So I have here Sublime from Pat McGrath. I'm going to be using the black from this because I really love Pat McGrath's Extreme Black shade. So we shall see how this goes. I feel like this is already intimidating me a lot, but I will try my best for you guys because I feel like the costume and the colored contacts are doing a lot for this look, and so I don't want my makeup skills to be what's holding this back. But if you are using this as a tutorial, please watch somebody else's because I have very little confidence in my ability to do cosplay makeup. And for those of you who like romance, I feel like there's a lot of it in Rose of Versailles that is a major draw for the series as well. So there's sort of two main pairings that the series centers around. So there's the real historical pairing of Marie Antoinette and her lover slash best friend Fersen, who was a count from Sweden who came to visit France during his grand tour and fell in love with Marie Antoinette, and actually in real life also tried to help her escape after the royal family was coming under fire. In addition, we have the love story of Oscar and Andre. So as I mentioned, Oscar is born into a noble family, a very aristocratic family that is known for its loyalty to the royal family. She's descended from a line of generals. But Andre is her childhood best friend and orderly slash servant. Andre is actually the grandson of the housekeeper at Oscar's home and also her nanny growing up. So basically when her grandson is orphaned, the nanny brings him to Oscar's family estate, and the general, out of a desire to have his daughter slash son grow up with a male companion, basically lets Andre kind of had the same noble education as her, training in fencing and weaponry and such. And so Andre kind of is someone who ends up in this very unique position where he is spending all of his time in these places that are normally reserved for the nobility, but he is himself a commoner. And he falls in love with Oscar, and she loves him as well, but it takes her kind of a while to fully acknowledge and accept her love for him, because she, being raised as a man and kind of being taught that she really should just focus on her military career, doesn't really open herself up to the possibility of love until later in the series. And she actually initially falls in love with Count Fersen, who is Marie Antoinette's lover, which then creates, as you can imagine, some interesting and complicated dynamics. But Fersen doesn't return her affections because he is wholeheartely devoted to Marie Antoinette. Side note, this eyeliner is really not going so well, but we're gonna keep plowing on. I'm supposed to, I think, draw like some line here as well. You know how like anime characters have that kind of line? This is really rough, and especially talking while doing this is very rough, but we will persevere. All right, that was not great, but I'll try to mimic that on the other side as well. Pretty wonky. Alrighty, well, hopefully some lashes will fix this as well. That is also something I normally don't do, but I am going to attempt today for you guys. But in any case, by the end of the show, Oscar and Andre finally get together, but spoiler, it is a very tragic ending because we are talking about the French Revolution and this sort of impossible love between a noble woman and her servant, which is very poetic in that on the one hand, it's sort of analogous to the broader challenges that motivate the French Revolution, like this sort of these class dynamics that artificially subjugate certain people and keep the nobility separate from the commoners. But at the same time, even though the French Revolution is kind of taking down these barriers, it is also kind of too little too late for Oscar and Andre. So I'm not going to say exactly how it ends, but just brace yourself for tragedy, because I was really, really wrecked by the ending. And then, of course, as you know from history, Marie Antoinette gets guillotined. So even though this is a genre, like shoujo manga is typically oriented towards younger women, one thing that was really unique and interesting about this series is that it brought an additional level of maturity and these sorts of like more adult themes to this genre, because you do have quite a lot of death in this series as well. It doesn't shy on tragedy at various points. Despite that though, it's not like a hard series to watch, meaning like it's not very dour in tone. It's actually, you know, there's a lot of like lighter moments too, especially in the manga. There's a lot of swashbuckling adventures too. So I really do like the range, because at least for me, I am always looking for series that have this kind of balance between serious and like thought-provoking, but also kind of still staying sufficiently lighthearted and fun that I can have some laughs along the way. I feel like the real world is kind of like dark and serious enough that usually when it comes to fiction, I still want something that feels more escapist. Alrighty, so I'm gonna hit the pause button for a moment because I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to rewatch that video that I just mentioned, and I'm pretty sure I've done things quite differently from what they did, and I'll be back. So in checking the video, I definitely did a lot of things very differently, and I honestly don't know if I can go back now. So I'm going to just plow ahead, and like I said, hopefully at the end of the day, worst comes to worst, these lashes just cover up all of the eye makeup that I did anyway. So I brought out this white eyeliner crayon, which I've actually like pretty much never used before, but I thought this might be helpful in terms of just making the eyes look a little bit bigger, because one thing I did wrong is this line under the eyes should have been extended kind of further downward to make the eyes look even bigger, but I kind of kept it too close to my natural eye shape. So we're just gonna try to make up for that a little bit by using some of this white crayon, which is not actually, payoff is not that great. So see if I can get some more in there. Alrighty, and then I'm also gonna try to do a little bit of that inner corner action here. So I have my tattoo liner. And yes, I am totally making things up now at this point because I am going rogue. That's okay. Halloween is all about fun and experimentation. And in general, I feel like the opacity of the eyeliner that I have going with the shadow and the pencil is not where I would like it to be. So I probably need to figure out ways to incorporate this liner a bit more. All right, let's see if we can darken this up a little bit. And since I'm going rogue, I've been debating what to do with the bottom lashes, because ideally I would have some falsies down there, but I don't. So I'm gonna maybe try to see if I can draw them on. Wish me luck. This might go really poorly. Okay, yeah, questionable at best, but we are going for costumes, so I guess this kind of still works. So now I'm gonna just try to further darken up some of this area. Try to make things look a little bit more intentional than they actually are. If any of you have done cosplay makeup before, please give me some pointers. And then this is me kind of going rogue, but I can't really stand how much blank space there is. I want there to be some sort of color. So I'm actually gonna go in with this astral shade and just add a bit, because I feel like there's a lot of sparkle in Rose of Versailles. Like, I mean, if you watch especially the anime, there's just like, anytime Oscar is there, there's just a lot of like sparkles everywhere because she's beautiful and everyone is obsessed with her. So I'm just gonna add some of this to kind of also cover up my mistakes slash just make this look more fun. The one good thing about Halloween stuff is I feel like you don't have to take it too seriously. At least that's my excuse for all mistakes today. There we go. Alrighty, so I actually don't hate this, surprisingly. It's a little questionable, but I feel like the look is not terrible, conditional on this just being for funsies. Alrighty, so let's see if I can put these lashes on. This is always a challenge for me. If you've watched my channel for a while, one thing you've probably noticed is compared to any other beauty influencers, I pretty much never do anything with my lashes. That includes mascara, curling my lashes, any sort of falsies as well. I feel like that's very common for most influencers, but just something I've always hated, and so pretty much never done consistently, but I will make an exception for today's look. So I don't know if I need to cut these or not. I feel like that's a lot of additional work, so maybe I will just put them on as is and hope for the best. But yeah, I feel like on the plus side, this should cover up a lot of my mistakes. So first, going to curl my lashes, which never like to hold a curl. So this is usually a step I skip. And then here I have this Winsome Lash Adhesive. I don't actually know if I've ever used this. So let's see how this goes. Going to apply a thin layer. Wait 30 seconds until the glue becomes sticky. I will say, even though this is like really not my best work by any stretch of the imagination, it's not looking as bad as I would have thought given how inexperienced I am in this. So maybe next time it'll go even better. But let me know if you guys like these sorts of videos, and I'd love to hear also if any of you have watched Rose of Versailles, especially if any of you are from Italy. You probably have. It's really random. Since I've gotten into this fandom, I found that it's really popular in Italy. Like if you look at the fan fiction, it's mostly written by Italians. So I'm not really sure why this story has so much relevance for folks in Italy, given that you'd think like, okay, it's from Japan, it's about France, like, those would be natural countries where people would be interested, but for some reason, yeah, it's really, really big in Italy. Okay, so now this is tacky. Alrighty, it's a little bit above my natural lash line, but maybe that's actually okay. Wow, this lash is too big to actually fit inside my lash curler. Alrighty, wow, that's wild. What do you guys think? Whew. I look so different. It's like kind of creeping me out now. But yeah, this is not that close to my lash line because I'm apparently really, really bad at doing this. But yeah, wow. How do people wear these? They look wild to me. Like, it feels so uncomfortable. Probably because I did it wrong, but let's just fill this. I'm going to do a little tight lining because I feel like you can sort of see my skin very clearly right now. And since everything is irritated anyway, why not add some eyeliner? Alrighty, there we go. Wow. Okay, now for the other eye. It's my first time wearing Lily lashes, which if you watch Morgan Turner, she has really raved about these for a long time. So I was excited to try these out, and they do seem like very good quality. In any case, in terms of watching Rose of Versailles, if you are interested, they do have it for free online. I think it's Amazon Freebie or something that has it. So I think I don't even know, you probably actually don't need an Amazon account to access it, but it is available for free online, subbed in English. So they don't have an English dub, which, I mean, to me is fine actually. I prefer to watch things in the original Japanese. I do really hope that the movie comes out on Crunchyroll so it's more accessible. The movie will be coming out in late January 2025. But now that I've gotten into this fandom, I am kind of sad how it's not more popular in the US. I think because there never was an official US release. The only people who've really watched it are people who've kind of just heard of it because it plays a big role in anime and manga history. Or if you've gone to Japan, there is just so many products that have Rose of Versailles branding, so you can naturally hear about it or at least be familiar with the aesthetic from that. Rose of Versailles is actually credited with being one of the influences that has made Japanese people so interested in French culture and in Versailles in particular. So if you go to Japan, there is a lot of stuff that references like that kind of Rococo style of the time. And Marie Antoinette in particular is also referenced a lot more than you would think, given that she's not a very popular figure in terms of being very well regarded in most other parts of the world. But all right, let's put this side on. Alrighty, so here we have the very intense lashes on. I'm so not used to seeing myself with lashes, and it's really weird having them kind of in my peripheral vision. But, the things you do for costumes. So now I do just want to add a little bit more sparkle to this look. So I'm going to take a little bit of that astral shade and also just kind of put it on the lower lash line in that kind of blank space in the inner corner. I just can't help myself. I feel like I need a little bit more of the theatricalness of some Pat McGrath astral shades when it comes to a look this fun and intense. There we go, just a little bit more sparkle, sparkle. And since there's so much going on with the eyes, I'm gonna try to keep the rest of the look relatively simple. So I have here my Dragon palette from Hourglass. I've been really loving this palette. And I'm gonna go in with this Chikuhodo brush and just start doing a bit of bronzing / contouring. And if I were more sophisticated at this, I would try to make my face look more like, I guess, the shape of an anime character's, but I'm gonna probably just do things more or less similar to how I usually do. Maybe just a little bit more aggressively contoured so that we have a bit more of that small anime face. So I'm kind of bringing this up higher than I would otherwise to kind of exaggerate that V shape. And then Oscar does have a very high nose, and so I'm going to try to emulate that a little bit by contouring my nose down a little bit. I will say I probably should have done this before I added lashes because I feel like the lashes are really obstructing my vision a little bit. Like, oops, I definitely messed up a little bit up here. Let me try to blend some of that out. Try to balance it out. I'm gonna use a little bit of this to lighten just the center. And then I'm not gonna put anything on my forehead because I do have bangs as part of this wig since Oscar has bangs. And then I'm gonna use this shade for blush. But what I really love about Oscar as a character is she really, I think, embodies like the best characteristics of nobility. She's very determined, she's very honorable and very thoughtful. So once she realizes the true situation in France and how much people are suffering, she actually turns towards the revolutionary cause and helps with the storming of the Bastille. So I think that's a really cool element of her character. Like the first part, she's really determined to support the royal family and to protect Marie Antoinette, but eventually she does kind of come around and realizes that the best way forward would be the abolition of the monarchy. But of course, that is a really hard conclusion for her to come to. She's not someone whose intrinsic nature is revolutionary, but she is very determined to support her beliefs and what she thinks is right and to help people. So she has a lot of these really great characteristics. Again, very much a superhero in many ways. Alrighty, so now for the lips. I was kind of going back and forth on how to do this. I do often see Oscar portrayed with kind of a red lip, so I'm gonna sort of go for that. But of course, her lips, being an anime character, are usually pretty small, so I don't know. I'm gonna first just dab on a little bit of this lip lacquer from Kohl and see how that looks. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of that, trying to do a little bit of that kind of blotted lip look. She is a military officer, so not one to wear makeup. Alrighty, I like the way that looks. So this is the Lady Oscar look. What do you guys think, at least pre-wig? I already feel like I look like, I don't know, like a nutcracker or doll, so quite different from my typical makeup looks, but it looks less bad than I anticipated. So there's that. And here we have the completed look with the wig. So this is my first time wearing a wig. I for sure put this on incorrectly. I don't have a bald cap or anything, so, you know, I just kind of slapped this on. But, I mean, yeah, so you can still kind of see, like, you know, some of my hair peeking through and all that. I'm going to have to try to further fix this later, but let me zoom you guys out a bit so you can get more of the overall effect. I think it's actually not too shoddy considering this is like my first time doing this, and it's a lot better than any Halloween costume I've had in the past. Yeah, I probably should also like wash and restyle this wig. I didn't do that for this video because I was a little bit worried, since this is a pretty cheap wig, that if I washed it, all the curls might just disappear. But yeah, it kind of, I feel like it kind of fits the vibe, slash Oscar's hair is supposed to be pretty wild anyway. But yeah, this is so strange. I feel like I don't even recognize myself. I look like a totally different person. But now I've answered my question of what I would look like if I were blonde with blue eyes. So in any case, this has been really fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this transformation. If you guys have any tips for this, definitely let me know. I'm sure a lot of you out there probably are far more experienced in cosplay than I am, but this was fun for me just to like kind of dabble in it for Halloween this year. Let me know also if you like Rose of Versailles, like Lady Oscar, if you are interested in this kind of content. I feel like today's video was honestly kind of self-indulgent. It was more just about me wanting to document this for myself, if for no one else. I feel honestly a little bit embarrassed putting this on the internet because this is not like at all a tutorial. Like, you know, I'm not an expert at doing this sort of look at all. But on the plus side, if you too are someone who has never done this before and you want to spend like less than $200 whipping together a look for Halloween, but that still kind of, you know, involves some effort and transformation, I think this was a decent shot at that. And if you haven't watched Rose of Versailles, I would highly, highly recommend it. I feel like today's video has been all over the place, but I do really love that show and would love to connect with any of you who are fans as well. Definitely highly recommend it for any of you who enjoy historical fiction, shoujo, anime, like strong female characters, especially ones that sword fight. But thank you all so much for joining me today. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!